At Kunigaki Junior High School, graduation is just around the corner, but that is no cause for celebration for Class 3E. Instead, it's cause for concern, as the students of Class E must kill their teacher by graduation or else he will destroy the earth much like he did the moon. In this video we will continue the story of the assassination classroom. Although the students of Class E have gotten significantly better at assassination combat over the prior months, it still isn't enough, and graduation is just 6 months away. Showing much interest in all of their life goals, Koro-sensei asks the students what careers they wish to pursue after school. All of the students are eager to tell him what they want to do when they graduate, except for Nagisa, who is hesitant and unsure of what career path he wishes to follow. Koro-sensei advises him to look into a career field in which he can efficiently utilize his leadership and strategic skills, as he has proven to be the greatest assassin of Class 3E so far for those very traits. Later that day, the assistant teacher, Kurasama, tells the class about a school festival that will be taking place next week. He tells them that this will be the perfect opportunity for them to attack and hopefully assassinate Koro-sensei, as this will be an inter-school event with students from all around the city attending along with other people from the community. With so many students there, Class 3E can move through the crowd unnoticed and make their attempt. Kurasama also tells the class that the Ministry of Defense has decided to send a highly skilled and experienced sniper, called Red Eye, to the event to execute the alien. So Kurasama tells them that if they want the $75 million reward and also want the honor of killing Koro-sensei and making him proud, then they'd have to be efficient and eliminate him before Red Eye does. Koro-sensei then enters the class and tells the students that he looks forward to seeing what they have in store for him at the festival, as it will be a perfect time for an assassination. To motivate them even further, he decides to reveal his biggest weakness. He tells them that even though his speed is his greatest strength, if the students held each of his tentacles he would be frozen and unable to move, leaving him open and vulnerable to attacks. The students immediately rush to grab his tentacles, but he effortlessly avoids them and reveals that his biggest weakness was a terrible lie that he made up to get them excited for the upcoming event. On the day of the festival, Koro-sensei disguises himself as a clown to turn away the attention of everyone else at the event, and he invites everyone to come watch the school play. When Koro-sensei approaches the entrance to the festival, Red Eye takes his shot, but the alien easily escapes. The students plan to assassinate Koro-sensei during the play, when he'd least expect them to attack, but he manages to dodge all of their attacks and the audience applauds the entire show. Koro-sensei then appears before Red Eye without him even noticing, and he thanks him for his participation, as it was because of him that the students are working harder at trying to assassinate him. Later, Koro-sensei helps the students store away all of the materials used in the play. Suddenly, a student named Kayano reveals that she also possesses tentacles sprouting from the back of her neck, which she uses to attack Koro-sensei. During the attack, she suddenly experiences severe pain. When Koro-sensei attempts to help her, she reveals that she is the sister of Yukimura, the woman who he was in love with who had died in the lab, and she accuses him of killing her sister, before fleeing into the forest. Itano says that if the girl had gotten her tentacles in the same way that he did, then she would need constant doses of the experimental substance to maintain her condition, or else she will become weak as she just did. The class then remembers that Yukimura was their previous year's teacher, who had went missing around the time that Koro-sensei showed up, so they question Koro-sensei about what Kayano said and whether it is true. He promises to tell them the full story once Kayano returns, as he says she also deserves to know the truth. Then, Kayano recalls the day her sister died. She went to the lab that her older sister was working at to meet her, only to find that there had been a huge explosion at the facility. She rushes to find her sister, and witnesses her lifeless body in the arms of a tentacled humanoid creature. When the creature leaves, she tries to wake her sister to no avail. She spots a briefcase, and inside it she finds a syringe that contained an experimental chemical substance. After looking through her sister's research, she discovers that the substance was being tested to mutate weaponized tentacles into the human genome, basically giving a person deadly tentacles upon injection. She injects herself with the drug, ignoring the risks and seeking revenge on the creature. When she found out the creature was the form teacher of Class 3E, she enrolled at the school and began plotting her revenge. The next morning, Kayano returns. This time she is even more powerful and her tentacles are flaming at the tips. She attacks Koro-sensei with powerful, devastating blows, nearly killing him, but she ends up burning herself out and she falls to the ground unconscious. Koro-sensei uses this window of opportunity to rip out her tentacles and destroy them. He says that if she continued to use her powers she would drain her life force and end up killing herself. Later, when all the students including Kayano are gathered in the class, Koro-sensei begins to tell them his life story. Just over a year ago, the sensei, who everybody believes to be an alien, was actually a human being. He was in fact one of the world's greatest assassins. They called him Shinigami, the Grim Reaper. Due to his broad assassin skill set, he always succeeded at executing his target every single time. One day, he was ambushed and captured by members of an unofficial organization run by a mad scientist called Gizawa. Believing Shinigami to be at the peak of human intellect and physicality, Gizawa decided that he'd be perfect for his experiments, and he began plotting to control and weaponize Shinigami for his own purposes. So he came up with an idea to incorporate antimatter into Shinigami's life cycle, which would give him near-infinite lethal abilities. To make this possible, the process would require a tremendous amount of energy while the subject was still alive. So Shinigami was imprisoned and experimented on in a lab where such energy could be utilized. Yukimura was an assistant at this lab, tasked with monitoring Gizawa's lab rats and ensuring everything goes according to plan. On the day Shinigami first met Yukimura, Gizawa enters the room after her and hits her with a clipboard. He belittles and commands her to keep an eye on all the lab rats instead of trying to make conversation with them. When he storms out of the room, Yukimura tells Shinigami that she is actually engaged to be married soon to Gizawa. Her parents had chosen him for her because he was wealthy and successful. Over the following weeks, she tells him that Gizawa has been trying to get her to leave her career and work at the lab, but she loves her job, so she works as a teacher during the day and at the lab during the evening. She tells him about Class 3E, and how she holds the students very close to her heart and really wants to see them succeed in life. Over the following months, Shinigami continues to be used as a lab rat in the experiments. He experiences a few side effects, notably some numbness in his extremities and coldness in his neck. So, Yukimura decides to gift him a tie, but she's unable to deliver the gift to him since it was against the rules of the organization. Yukimura continues to tell Shinigami about her abusive, controlling future husband. Gizawa has already made the decision for her to leave her day job as a teacher and work exclusively in the lab starting next year. Shinigami encourages her to follow her passion and she thanks him for being so supportive of her. She says she wishes she could at least hold his hand. Then, Shinigami reveals to her that he has actually developed a mutation as a result of all the experiments. He has developed tentacles that he uses to reach beyond the cell wall and form a hand to touch her, and the two share a loving moment. A few days later, it appears in news reports all over the globe that 70% of the moon has been destroyed. Although the rest of the world is in the dark as to what could have caused this, Gizawa knows exactly what happened. He has been secretly conducting antimatter experiments on the surface of the moon. In one such experiment, a mouse was transplanted with the same antimatter generating cells used in Shinigami's trials. This generated an explosion which obliterated a large chunk of the moon. Analyzing the cell division cycle of the mouse and cross-evaluating it with Shinigami's progress, Gizawa is able to deduce that Shinigami will also explode by mid-March next year, which will destroy the planet along with him. He plans to kill Shinigami before that time passes. Yukimura eavesdrops on him informing the rest of his scientists about the explosion, and she rushes to inform Shinigami and promises to find a way to save him. But Shinigami tells her that he deserves to die after killing all those people as an assassin for money. However, he refuses to spend his last days imprisoned in the lab, so he makes his escape. He uses his powerful tentacles to destroy the glass and makes his way towards the exit. Yukimura pleads with Gizawa to help Shinigami, but he kicks her and sends her fleeing. Then, he readies a powerful bionic weapon to kill Shinigami before he escapes. Before it strikes Shinigami, Yukimura appears behind him and absorbs the impact of the strike from the bionic tentacle. As she bleeds out on the floor, she begs him to continue her legacy by mentoring and helping the students of Class 3E to graduate. Shinigami promises to do so and takes the tie from her as a parting gift while she takes her last breath. Using his newfound power, Shinigami transforms himself into a creature that resembles his favorite animal, an octopus, and so he becomes the yellow humanoid octopus creature to hide his identity, and he dedicated the last of his days to fulfilling the promise he made to Yukimura. So, regardless of whatever happened, Shinigami was going to die by graduation anyway. He didn't want to destroy the Earth, instead, he knew it was inevitable, so he wanted the class of 3E to have the honor of killing him before graduation and saving the world. After the truth is revealed to them, the class begins to sympathize with Koro-sensei and none of them have the will to kill him anymore. The winter break goes by without any of them making an assassination attempt, and when they all return to class, Nagisa decides to hold a meeting to determine a plan of action moving forward. He says that despite Koro-sensei being a threat to the entire world, he is actually a good person deep down who deserves a second chance. So he says that instead of trying to kill him, the class should work together to find a way to save him and prevent the explosion. Some of the students agree with him, but the class is divided as half of them believe that the best course of action would be to kill him. After all, they are closer to killing him than saving him, as they've been training for an entire year now to assassinate him, and they have no idea how to even begin trying to save him from exploding. It just seems too risky. Karma, one of the most respected students of the class, makes a stand and sides with the students that want to kill Koro-sensei. Since they're at a stalemate, Karma challenges Nagisa to a duel to decide the fate of the class. They agree on the terms of the duel, which state that the both of them, each armed with a training knife, will attack the other, and the first to manage to place the knife edge at a vital point on his opponent would be the winner. The fight then begins, and Karma proves to be a handful for Nagisa, who, despite being declared the best assassin of Class E for his strategic ability, just simply isn't a match for Karma's speed, strength and combat experience. In an act of desperation, Nagisa grabs Karma's arm and attempts to immobilize him, leaving Karma's left hand free, and he could strike and win the duel at any moment. But, upon realizing the determination Nagisa has to help Koro-sensei, Karma decides to let him win the duel. The fight, however, doesn't determine the class's decision. Instead, it gave them a clearer perspective. So they all make a final decision about whether they're going to kill Koro-sensei. They decide that they'll continue to try to assassinate him, but at the same time, they'll work towards finding a way to save him. This would ensure that they have a plan B to save the world if all else fails. A few days later, Ritsu, the class's AI student, is able to track and hack into a government database all the way on the other side of the world. She gains access to documents detailing experiments foreign nations have been conducting to find a way to kill Koro-sensei. She discovers a formula for a compound that may be able to make the antimatter particles within Koro-sensei's genes stable, thus preventing him from exploding. But the formula's success rate relies heavily on essential structural data from the antimatter experiment, that only Gizawa would be in possession of. But nobody knows Gizawa's whereabouts. Itona has an idea where the data might be, as he was also one of the mad scientist's lab rats, who he turned into a weapon by implanting him with tentacles in his secret lab. Itona, Nagisa and Karma head over to Gizawa's personal underground lab and recover the data with the aid of Ritsu. After accessing the data, the class gets to work on creating the formula for the compound, and after several attempts, they're finally able to find the right composition. They complete the chemical process, but the compound will only be ready by the next morning. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Defense secretly enters its near-final stage of a classified project to finally kill Koro-sensei. They've launched an antimatter-powered laser, amplified by a giant particle accelerator, into orbit. After entering outer space, the giant machine begins powering itself to wipe out Koro-sensei for good, but this powering up process will take 24 hours. The next morning before school begins, Kurasama goes to the sensei's office and bids him farewell. He mentions that graduation is just around the corner, and no matter the outcome, the relationship between the two of them would come to an end. Then, he leaves the school premises and calls his superiors, informing them that the super creature is alone on Class 3E's premises. A huge barrier is then activated, which traps the sensei in the school. As the students make their way to class, they are ambushed by soldiers from the ministry, and taken to an underground tunnel prison where they will be detained until Koro-sensei is killed by the laser. Kurasama-sensei comes to check up on the students, and tells them the government's plan to kill Koro-sensei. The students inform him of the compound they have prepared which could save Koro-sensei's life and stop the destruction of the earth, but Kurasama says that it's too late. He tells them that it was decided by all the world leaders that Koro-sensei would be killed this way, and the decision cannot under any circumstances be overturned. When Kurasama leaves, Karma comes up with an idea to lure the guards by causing an explosion and pretending to be unconscious. When the guards come in to check on the students, they attack and subdue them before making their escape. They sneak past the other soldiers and bump into Kurasama, who they believe will try to stop them. Instead, he asks what took them so long. He reminds them that the laser will fire at midnight, before leading them out of the tunnels. Once outside, they find that the place is surrounded by soldiers, who have set up a base around the barrier outside the school, but their English teacher, Miss Arena, who is also a highly skilled assassin, attacks the base with a rocket launcher, causing chaos and allowing the students to take out the soldiers. A few hours later, all of the students make it to class and meet Koro-sensei once again. He tells them that he is really trapped this time, with no tricks up his sleeve. The barrier encases not just the school, but everything underneath it as well, creating a complete spherical shield that he cannot penetrate. Nevertheless, he is happy to see them. The class then present him with the compound, and he gladly takes it while they all rejoice knowing that they've saved their teacher and don't have to kill him. Koro-sensei thanks all of them for their effort and reveals graduation certificates that he made for the whole class. However, before he can hand them the certificates, Gizawa enters the class and destroys them with tentacles of his own. The man appears crazed out of his mind, and says he is there to finally kill Koro-sensei and save the world. When Nagisa steps forward and tells him that Koro-sensei has been cured and will no longer be a threat to the earth, Gizawa reveals that he had been observing them the entire time they were in the lab, and he purposefully tampered with the data they collected so that whatever attempts they make would be in vain. The psychopath wants to kill the sensei just to feed his bloodlust and become the most powerful creature in the world, and that's the bottom line. He also reveals a serum he's been perfecting that is stable, but even stronger. He injects himself several times, transforming into a beastly mutated creature. He strikes Koro-sensei with vicious powerful blows, slicing away part of his head and tentacle arm, before violently throwing him out of the class. He breaks through the class wall and attacks the sensei once again before taking the fight to the roof. Here, now fully transformed and looking like a Groot possessed by a demon, he stabs his tentacles right through the sensei's body, the roof, and the floor beneath, nearly killing all of the students if not for the powerful plot armor. Seeing Koro-sensei near death, Kayano steps in between him and Gizawa, allowing him time to regenerate the lost body parts. She tells Koro-sensei to flee while she holds back the madman, but the monster viciously attacks her as well, severely wounding her and ultimately taking her life. The sensei clutches her in his arms as she takes her last breath, and she apologizes for attacking him all those weeks ago. Gizawa taunts the sensei, telling him that he's the reason Kayano and her sister are dead, and he couldn't do anything to stop it. And that just flipped a switch in him where he was like, okay, f*** you, watch this. Then, he uses his tentacles to transfer most of his energy into a ball and Kamehamehas the shit out of Gizawa with the power of 1,000 suns, burning him out of existence. After eliminating the mad scientist for good, Koro-sensei rushes Kayano into the class and begins using his powers to revive her. He had been working on transferring his regenerative abilities into others, to heal them using his energy ever since he discovered his abilities. It was one of his priorities, the result of not being able to save Yukimura. And in an act of poetic irony, the once assassin now gives life, and Kayano opens her eyes. Having used up all of his energy in doing so, Koro-sensei lies on the ground exhausted, and informs the students that they don't have much time. The laser is about to fire, but before the ministry gets the chance, he wants the class to have the honor of killing him. The students are reluctant, but they eventually agree that it is the best thing to do for Koro-sensei's sake. So Nagisa is elected to perform the assassination, but Koro-sensei says it should be a class effort. So all the students group together, and hold on to Koro-sensei's tentacles as Nagisa gets on top of him with the anti-teacher knife above his head and tears in his eyes. Koro-sensei then utters his final words. He tells the class how proud he is of them, and how they've all become great and dedicated human beings with a bright future. He finally tells Nagisa to be brave, and the boy musters up the strength to pierce his heart. The sensei's body disintegrates into tiny glowing particles that display a magical yet sad scene. As Koro-sensei slowly fades out of existence, the last bit of his energy visits his ex-colleagues, Arina and Karasuma, to bid them farewell before it also dissipates, and the two are overcome with grief as well. The military then notice that Koro-sensei's vitals are no more. Then, we see that Nagisa has finally made up his mind about what he wanted to do when he graduates. He returns to Class 3E to teach the new batch of delinquent students. He initially realizes that they are a handful, and there's a lot of work to be done, but he's really excited to help the students reach for the stars with the newfound inspiration he's gained from Koro-sensei. The end.